All right, it's recording. So, hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. This is Mahvish Akhtar with the Muslim Observer. Today we will be talking to Dr. Burney, Dr. Umar Burney. He is a orthopedic surgeon. He was in Gaza recently, and during Ramadan, I believe, and he's here with us today. He has some information for us and some inside, stuff that we don't get to hear normally. We have a lot of news coming out of Gaza that we, of course, we know is authentic because we have journalists on the ground and people who are living through it. But there is some things that we want to know that from an outsider's perspective, people who do care about what is happening to our people down there, but we don't get that point of view where we can come back and detach from it and let people know, let the world know what's happening. Not detach in the sense of we don't care, but there's a different perspective when you can come back and tell the world in a way that is that the rest of the world can understand. I hope I'm making myself clear in that way. So let's go ahead and talk to Dr. Burney. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Burney. So much. I have so much appreciation for what you did, and thank you so much for being here today.
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you for having me.
All right, so you work in Rockwell, Texas. You're an orthopedic surgeon, and so I'm going to try to go over this really quickly because this list is really long. Things that you've done. You're a director of sports medicine in Presbyterian Hospital, and director of joints program, and you also have worked in sports trauma, orthopedic trauma, and sports trauma. Is that what you do? All right.
Right.
So, a fellow of the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, fellow of the American Association of Hip and Knee Surgeons, member of the arthroscopy. Am I saying this right? Arthroscopy? Yeah. Okay. Association of.
Right. Perfect.
Wow,
Yeah.
I got a lot of these, right? So you have 18 years of experience, and you do a lot of community work. I noticed the member of Rockwell Chambers, member of Wiley Chambers. I'm not going to ask you what all those things are. People can look them up because we're going to just get stuck in all this and never get to our main subject matter today. All right. So let's start with how did this happen? How did you get involved in this? Was it something you planned or just happened?
Yeah, no, honestly, it wasn't, I couldn't say it was something that was planned. It's like a lot of things in my life, it sort of fell in my lap. I got to meet some individuals who had been working in Gaza, in Palestine, prior to the war. As then I'm sure you're aware, I've been coming to Pakistan for the last almost 10 years now, doing some medical mission work, if you will, in Pakistan, various parts of Pakistan. And so for that reason, I had a little bit of some insight into work in the medical mission space. And so obviously got to talking to these individuals, basically was exchanging notes and essentially offered my services in their mission work. This is just around the time the war started in October, because it was just about the time we were going to head to Pakistan soon thereafter. So anyways, long story short, I never really thought it would come to fruition. And then about 3-4 weeks ago, a couple weeks prior to my trip to Gaza, they said, "Are you still interested?" And I said, I don't know. I mean, this is, I never thought that this opportunity would come. And so, alhamdulillah, it did. I did my necessary homework, if you will, which basically just, involved talking to my family, making sure work was situated, making sure my responsibilities were, taken care of, tied down my knots. And, alhamdulillah, I was able to head out to Gaza. So yeah, a long answer, but basically, it wasn't exactly very much planned. No, I had prayed that Allah gives me the opportunity to do more. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave that to me, and I was fortunate enough to avail it.
Not a long answer. We want to know every detail. We're here for it. So you said your family, how did they react? Because it's a difficult thing to hear that, anybody from your family, your son, husband, father, anyone, brother, anybody is, making that kind of trip.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. You spot on. Yeah, it's very difficult for the family. Obviously, as you know, I have a wife and 3 children, and alhamdulillah, and most importantly, I have a elderly mother, who is my responsibility. And so, obviously the wife and the children, I'm not gonna say they were okay with it, but being young and more, I guess, they still have other faculties about them. They were much more easily convinced, if you will. My wife, obviously, we've been married, 21 years now, mashallah. And so she knows me enough to know that when a bug gets in my head, I'm pretty, stubborn, I guess. So her answer to me was, listen, I know you're going to do it, so just do it. And, alhamdulillah, she's very supportive. This isn't the craziest thing I've ever done. And so alhamdulillah, she stepped up as she always does and said, look, I got this side, you go do that side. I think it was a different story with my mother. There's a lot more emotionality involved. Of course, she's, elderly, and obviously there's a deep sense of, sort of insecurity that comes with being elderly, obviously. So her convincing was a little bit more difficult. But alhamdulillah, our mothers, your mother, my mother, may Allah grant her forgiveness, inshallah. Obviously, they were raised differently. They come from a very strong creed. And ultimately, she realized that this was an opportunity to serve humanity at a very different level. Alhamdulillah, had her blessings at the end to go. And, I obviously wouldn't have done it without her blessings, but it had her blessings. And, alhamdulillah, our mothers raised us to be strong men and women. And, so I made it happen.
That's what I say. Like, when these kinds of things happen, and our men step up, everybody, of course, and rightly so, praise their bravery. And I was really surprised when I heard that you had taken that step. But that's what I was thinking, that for your wife and your mother, that's the women, and even for other men, the women who are left behind, taking, handling the fort, so to speak, in the background, just to wait and just watch and wait. It's that's the biggest struggle, really, going on. So walk me through the logistics of it, because obviously it must be hard getting into Gaza. So walk me through that.
Yeah. So, there's a process by which we go. Obviously, the organization that you go as part of, that organization needs to have some recognition with the United Nations. It has to be able to work with the World Health Organization and the United Nations. And so the organization that I went with had that. There's 4 or 5 different organizations that are participant in this process. Basically, you're going as part of a United Nations sponsored medical response for the people of Gaza. So we landed in Cairo. You need about 5 different clearances to be able to get across. And so obviously the process starts, well in advance, a few weeks before. Then you make it to Cairo. You need to have a United Nations clearance. You have a World Health Organization clearance. Then you get the Egyptian Foreign Ministry that allows you clearance. Then you have the Palestinians, for whatever it's worth, and what's left of their government that has to clear you. And then, subhanAllah, the biggest one I would argue is is an agency called COGAT. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for. I used to know, but it basically is the front agency, if you will, of the Israeli government. And so these 5 clearances are what you need to even move from Cairo. And then, as you know, to get into Gaza right now, the only border, and has been this way for many, many years, is basically essentially the border between the Rafah border, the Rafah cross border, they call it, which is essentially the southern part of Gaza Strip and the northern part of the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula. So that's the only border that you can connect to, in the same border we used. And so we had to, hang out in Cairo until we got all these clearances that I just mentioned. And alhamdulillah, once we got the clearances, I was able to enter into Gaza through the Rafah border.
How long did that take?
So, yeah, so that's a 14-hour car ride, bus ride. There's no other way really to go. So, we left. There's a UN convoy, a humanitarian convoy, which includes the medical and then, of course, a little bit of the other relief work. And the border opens for this convoy on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so we basically got in on one of those convoys that leaves bright and early in the morning at like 4 a.m. from Cairo, and it gets, after traveling all day, you get to the Rafah, Palestine side by, sort of late evening, just before sunset. So it's an all-day affair going either way, essentially.
And what were you feeling? What were your emotions when you were traveling? I mean, that must have been.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of a climax that had built up. So I have to give you a little bit of backstory to answer what my feelings were. And I obviously can't describe the feeling because, there's a feeling when you first leave your house. There's a feeling when you hug your children for what may be the last time. There's a feeling when you get your mother to kiss your head before you leave. And there's the feeling of you stepping out of the house. There's that feeling. Obviously, then you're far, far plane ride away from getting into Cairo and even just being in Cairo. And then unfortunately, in our case, we had sort of an unexpected delay in Cairo because of these 5 clearances that I just mentioned. We were not able to get the COGAT Israeli clearance. And so we actually were held up in Egypt, in Cairo, for unexpectedly for 4 nights. And so that was a little bit of a climax, anticlimax, depending on, and at several points through that time, we were told that we would not get clearance, that we would probably end up packing up and going back home without going into Palestine. So as you can imagine, those 4 days were just a roller coaster of emotions. We had set out for a mission, and then to go back home, quote unquote, empty handed, if you will. So there was that. And then, believe it or not, we got in on a Wednesday morning, we left on a Wednesday morning at about 4 a.m. We did not know that we were going in and had gotten the clearance till about Tuesday night at about 8:30, 9 o'clock. So really and truly, by the time we found out that we were going in, it was a immense relief that we actually got the approval. As I said, we were prepared not to go, like we were mentally preparing ourselves to go back home. We were told that you just need to go home. You're not going to get in. And then all of a sudden, alhamdulillah, through many, many people working behind the scenes, and of course, Allah's blessing and, what he had decreed for us, we found out literally like 10 hours before we actually departed that we were going. And so, that night was a very special night in Cairo. It was obviously, as you mentioned, the last 10 nights of Ramadan. We'd been making lots of du'as and prayers. And that night was a very special night. Obviously, laying in bed, it was not much sleep. In some respects, you can argue, knowing even then that we were going to go in and probably not get any sleep for the next 10 days that we were going to be in. Once you get on that train, once you get on that bus going in, it's kind of surreal. It felt very kind of interesting that actually it was going to happen. And then when you finally cross the border and you're into Gaza, I don't know if I can describe to you what that feeling is. It's you're there. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just, it's nothing you've ever experienced before. You're there for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a feeling of being alone, but yet being with the most powerful You're protected. I never once felt like I was unprotected. Not once. Um, so yeah, alhamdulillah, it was just a different feeling. I hope I get to feel it again someday.
So describe then the people, like who were the first people you met? Where were you? If you know.
First people I met. So we get in there late evening on to the Gaza. It was just before Maghrib time out. It says before sunset. And there's so many checkpoints. You cross them out 10 or 12 checkpoints.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Even after you get into Gaza, there are checkpoints?
No, sorry. All these checkpoints are before the Gaza border. The Rafah border, sorry. Once you get to the Rafah border, obviously you're into Palestine, and then you're into, Rafah was itself. So all these checkpoints, you go through them, and after a while, after, I don't know, the fifth or sixth one, it just becomes kind of routine that you're going through checkpoint after checkpoint. You hand over your passport, they look around, you stand around, then they come back, ask a few questions, then you go through, then about an hour later, you stop again. And this happens for 14 hours, if you can imagine. Anyways, finally get through the border, and then subhanAllah, you get to meet the people of Palestine. And I'll tell you, amazingly, what struck me immediately was their hospitality with what little they had. So believe it or not, when you drive through the Sinai Peninsula, it's harsh, very harsh. That just the terrain is harsh. It's desert. It's a very arid, there's nothing there. And the people, the military, which is basically the Egyptian military, just like any military. I mean, they're doing their job at their checkpost, but basically they're the ones that man the checkpost. So you're kind of going through a series of, at best you get to step out of your car, but for the most part, you're stuck in this van through the entire process for the 14 hours. And then you finally get across, and you go, and the Palestinian side of that border, it has the most plush couches in the reception area of their quote unquote border terminal. So you get across, and they have these massive leather couches that they welcome you to sit on as if you're coming into somebody's living room. And they want you to sit, and we had some media there that was there to welcome us and receive us. And honestly, it felt to me like I just walked into somebody's living room after 14 hours of what felt like a fairly rough ride. So, those people are the most generous hearted people. I can't say enough about people of Gaza and the people of Palestine. They are the epitome of what human beings should be. And it started right away. They were so happy to see us. They were so welcoming. They were so, they have nothing. They really have nothing. I'm surprised this border terminal, it's like I'm surprised it's not destroyed, because maybe one of the few places that's not destroyed. And, it's clean, and they have these couches. As I said, they made sure everybody in our big group had a chair to sit on, and please sit while we process your passports. And it's not like any other place in the world where you have to stand in a line. They said, sit down, doctor, please have a seat, and we'll be back with your passports, and don't worry about your luggage. And it was amazing.
Why do you
really
think
nice.
that is? Why do you think it's like that compared to any place else?
I don't know. I honestly don't know why they're like that. You can ask me why they're like that. I have no idea. They're happy to see us. They know we were bringing food and medical equipment and aids, if you will, and what have you. And, it was amazing. They were happy to see us. And, frankly, you go to other parts, alhamdulillah, been able to travel a lot of different parts of the world. In fact, when I landed at Cairo International Airport, just like in most third world countries, you get these porters that are harassing you, and everybody's trying to pull your cart, and I'm going to pick your suitcase up because, he wants his, $10 tip or whatever he's wanting to. these people are not, they were picking up our stuff and they were helping us load our trolleys. We had 83 suitcases. And so it's almost like an airport terminal. They take your suitcases on one side, even though you've come on a bus, take your suitcases, they run them through whatever customs or whatever. And then they put them on a literal conveyor belt at this terminal. And, they were helping us take the suitcases off and identify these 83 suitcases. Can you imagine? So, they helped us put all these suitcases away, and there was no concern at all for things getting stolen. Like these people haven't had, a full meal in 6 months. Maybe they're going to try to start digging into these suitcases and see what's in them. Not for a second. Did we miss anything? No suitcases went missing. Our personal bags, nothing. We carry valuables with us. No concern. So, I remember feeling like, wow, amazing that these people are not after my stuff. That's kind of weird because everywhere else in the world, you're guarding your purses and your suitcase, your handbag, and you're kind of holding tight and whatever. Not over there.
Yeah. They give you a warning on TripAdvisor to keep your bags and your belongings close to you. Definitely. Yeah. All right. So what did you find inside Gaza, the situation with all of these humanitarian issues and everything?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot to speak of, but, obviously, our work is in the hospital. So I'll kind of break it up into two. You've got the medical side of things, and then you've got the state of affairs for the people. Obviously, the people, are all essentially displaced. They're all in tents. There's very, very few people that are actually living in homes, as you and I would describe them. The vast majority, the areas that we saw, at least in Rafah, were basically massive tent cities. The population is in dire need. Just the most desperate situations, right? As I said, tent cities, no running water, no sewage, trash piles everywhere, no obviously trash collection services. Extreme markets are all destroyed. You can see where the markets and the local shops and stuff used to be, but they're not functioning. You see a few street side vendors trying to sell a little bit here and there, but you can tell it's all just very paltry. There's not much there. No gas stations, So, obviously, right off the bat, you get the sense that this place is gone through some tough times. And then, of course, as you're driving around, you see bombed out cars and trucks just laying littered on the side of the street. And then depending on where you are, and I would argue pretty much anywhere and everywhere in Gaza, houses destroyed by bombs, rubble. Just every house. I don't think I saw a house that didn't have some degree of bullet injury to the house, to the structure, to the facade of the house, or was completely bombed out. I don't think, I remember seeing anything that wasn't at some degree damaged. And so, people are living amongst that. You'll see, just like any place else, children running around, barefoot children running around everywhere. People look, they look thin, and you can tell they're not well nutritioned. So yeah, obviously when you go at these United Nations missions, you're very sort of protected in the sense that, they don't let you kind of pull over your vehicle on the side of the street and start talking to random people. So you can see them as you're driving, but you're not obviously stopping to talk or interact with them. So that was the people on the outside. The hospital we worked at was in Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis, obviously, as a city, is decimated. There's no city. It's just been bombed to oblivion. You can, like I said, bird can fly for an hour without landing on anything that's a, well-formed structure still. Everything is just obliterated. Khan Yunis, the hospital was called European General Hospital. This hospital, like any other hospital, had a If you can imagine, it has like this courtyard, and when you see a hospital, what do you see? You see some grassy lawns in the front, and then you have a little drive up, and then you get to the hospital building, and not over here. No, there wasn't a square inch of concrete or grass where there wasn't a tent. This hospital complex, and I'm including the compound, had 35,000 people living in it. And so anywhere and everywhere you look, there's tents and people spread out, and just masses and masses of people everywhere. And that includes inside the hospital, in the buildings, in the hallways, mattresses on the ground. You can walk single file, one behind each other, in the hallways of this hospital, because on both sides of the hallways, there's people have hung up like blankets on strings, and basically barricaded themselves little tents and rooms, and people are living there. And or they're just not even, they can't even afford a little tent, so they're just laying with a mattress, a little 3 by 6 foot mattress, just enough to fit one human being on them, on the side of the hallway. And that's where they've been for 4 months, 5 months. That's their home. Children everywhere. So I've never seen that many children in my life. You can't go to any part of that hospital where the children aren't running around. You're liable to run into children anywhere. Any piece of furniture you see in the hospital, any office has somebody sleeping under the desk. And again, I'm not talking about sleeping there for a day or two. That's their home for months, 6 months. So the hospital is, it is what it is. So that's about the people. The people are very strong, very strong. I did not hear anybody complain. I did not hear anybody cry. I did not hear anybody say, why me? Why us? I didn't even hear a single person complain about the IDF or the Israeli Defense Forces. Not a single person. Nobody. So, they come, they smile, they have the prettiest smiles, then, just the nicest face you've ever seen, as if nothing's happened to them. Literally, as if nothing's ever happened to them. Like, they're not going through war, they're not living in a tent, they're not starving, they're not, having food insecurity, they don't know where their next meal's coming from. None of it. You could not tell an ounce of it from their faces. You would think that this is just somebody who's just living a normal life. You just showed up to work from their beautiful suburban home. Meanwhile, they're coming from the tent, and they are sharing a bathroom with 600 people. I don't understand, honestly, how these ladies, you look at their faces. Well, I didn't see a single woman's hair in the 10 days I was there, but their faces are glowing. It looks like, somebody just, mashallah, so much contentment, not a wrinkle. Like I said, nobody cries. I saw one child cry in 10 days. One child in 10 days. They run around, they're playing. So these people are something else, man. They are truly, truly, truly something else. This is a different, they're cut from a different, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them different. I can't describe it. And then, as far as the medical side of things goes, obviously, we saw a lot of injuries. We took care of a lot of people. They were still coming. The hospital, as I just told you, is not really a hospital in the sense that, it's just a big overgrown refugee camp. But there's an emergency room, and there's operating rooms, and there's floors, quote unquote, wards. Yeah. So, the medical injuries are pretty intense. You want me to dive into that?
If you could, if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I tell people, look, I classify the injuries because I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I classify the injuries into 3 categories. There was the category that we probably dealt with about 20 to 25% of the time, which was the sort of what we call acute injuries, people who were just actively being injured by through the war, through, their exchange of gunfire or rocket attack or whatever way of injury, rubble, bombing. So the Palestinians that were coming to see us in the hospital after having been injured by the Israeli Defense Forces and their shelling of their land or shooting or bombing or rocket injuries. So that was about 25% of it. We'd see those injuries. They're devastating, as you can imagine, blown off limbs, nasty, nasty broken bones, open wounds, bones sticking out, just the whole gamut, whatever you can imagine. So that was about 25%. The other 50% was people who had the actual assault on Khan Yunis occurred in January and February. So those of the citizenry that was injured in January and February that had some initial treatment. In the orthopedic world, when you have a nasty broken bone or something that's sticking out of the skin and is dirty because of all of its debris and contamination, what we have to do is we have to clean it and let the skin heal and the wound heal. And then we do this, what we call an external fixator, which is a temporary fixation device. So anyways, 50% of what we did was take these people who had previously been treated by orthopedic teams that had been there before us, or even the local orthopedic surgeons. And we then kept their treatment going. We cleaned them again, or we put different types of rods and screws and things like that. So that was 50% of what we were doing. And then that leaves about a 25% that was a very strange category that I didn't anticipate at all seeing, which was Palestinians injuring Palestinians. And this happened on multiple occasions to us, where we were called to come take care of a patient who was a Palestinian who was stealing from the aid trucks or from the aid depots, and what was left of the Palestinian police, if you will, this ragtag bunch of guys that were trying to protect the aid convoys, would give them 3 tries. If you steal once, you get a verbal warning. If you steal twice, you get roughed up and slapped around. And if you steal for the 3rd time, they break your legs. And they would break these legs on these young boys who were stealing for their starving families. So they would break their legs, they would break their arms, and they would label them a thief, and they would dump them in the emergency room. SubhanAllah, we took care of those kids too. The thieves of the society, as they would be called. And so, obviously trying, testing, but that was the nature of what we did. There was no, obviously no shortage of work. There are some local teams there. As I said, very, very resilient people, very strong-minded people, strong-willed people, nurses, technicians, mid-level crew, if you will, even some junior doctors. The senior doctors had all left. They had all evacuated. They had either left and gone to Egypt if they could afford it, or, just had left and gone home essentially. But the junior mid-level doctors were there, the technicians, some of the nursing staff was there, some of them, not all of them. They're just exhausted. They've been working nonstop with this war for the last 6-7 months now. They're emotionally fatigued. They're mentally broken. They're physically tired. The pace of the injuries they've been seeing come through their doors for the last 7 months nonstop without relief. They're not getting paid. There's no system of payment now. These are government hospitals. There is really no functioning government per se. So, it's tough to see what they're going through. We tried to give them a break. We tried to take over. But, obviously they were involved with us still. They were working with us. They would help out as best they could. So yeah, the hospital is in shambles. It's a big, massive refugee camp. And, but we made it work.
So what
Yeah.
would be the takeaway from all this? I know, sir, it's a big question, but whatever you can give us.
I mean, look, I think, like I said, when you make a trip like this, you come out of this with your faith being much stronger. Alhamdulillah, it took me a week to 10, I've been back for 10 days now. First week was just the fatigue of all of what had happened. But obviously, I'm no spring chicken. My body was tired. But now that I'm coming out of it, this weekend was, as I told you, it's been a very, very hectic weekend. I think what you take away from this kind of thing, obviously, is that, you're motivated by these people. If they can do it, then you can do it. Their iman is at a different level. Their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their tawakkul is at a different level. And most importantly, I think that, I've had a chance to kind of reflect on what I really kind of got from these people. Look, I mean, at the heart of it, look, let's be honest. Gaza, not taking away anything from Gaza. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of land. It's, we call it the Holy Land. The Quran teaches us it's a land that's blessed. But I used to always read the Quran. I always wonder what's so blessed about this land that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his prophet from Mecca to, Al-Aqsa, and then raised him to heaven from Al-Aqsa, and then time and again in the Quran, it tells us that, this is the blessed land. I used to always kind of wonder, okay, well, I hope I get to see it someday. I'm kind of curious. Is it the dirt that feels different? Is it the air? Is it the smell? I mean, what is it, I would say it's all that, but I'll tell you what it is. It's the people. It's the people. These people are different. They come from they're cut from a different fabric. And you want to say they're people that are grateful for what they have, but I would say it's to a different level. They're actually content with everything. Everything. When I tell you, I didn't see a person complain. They always, if you ask them what happened to them, tell me your story. Tell me what happened to you. Who are you? I don't think I met anybody who hadn't lost at least 2 or 3 family members. Not a single person that I can think of in 10 days. The average had lost 30, 35 family members. Their homes are all destroyed, and they all have videos of the before and after on their phones. They'll show you if you ask them. But with all that, they don't have food. It's just, they don't know where their next meal's coming from. Literally, I've never seen that. I've, heard about it. There's no safe drinking water. And I can keep going on and on, but I'll tell you this. I mean, they are content. They will tell you about their families that they've lost, and the homes and the belongings and the cars and whatever. And then they say, Alhamdulillah, they're content with their past. What happened to them, they're okay with it. They said, this is how we were raised. This is the 5th war we've seen. We've lived like this for 55 years, 60 years, war upon war, subjugation upon subjugation. They're content with their present. Not one time did I hear somebody tell me that I don't like the tent that I live in. I don't like this bread that I'm eating for iftar tonight. I don't like the fact that the neighbor's kid is crying and I can hear him because it's, one little fabric layer away from my tent. I didn't hear any of that. Or it's hot outside, or it's cold, or the bathroom's dirty, or whatever. I never heard a single thing about that. And you know what? What's the most amazing is that they're content with their future, because so many times, like one of my friends who was with me on this trip, he said one day he paid one of the technicians, he said, I'll give you some money because tomorrow I will sponsor the iftar. I want you to prepare iftar. He was preparing iftar, this guy. He would pay him to prepare the iftar. And he said that, I'll pay the money and you prepare the iftar for tomorrow. It's on me. And we'll all sit down and eat together in the hospital, because we were living in the hospital. And this guy said, no, brother, I can't take the money from you because I may not be here tomorrow. Every night we go to sleep, we expect to be shaheed. And he said, brother, if I come tomorrow, if I'm here, then I'll take the money from you. I'll prepare the food and we'll have iftar together. But I cannot take the money from you tonight. And if I don't come, I don't want to answer for it. And so these people are ready. They're ready. Their best outcome is becoming, the shaheeds and, whatever. And if it doesn't happen and they get their country back, they're ready for that too. But so truly they are content in the past and the present and in the future. And so, you say what the takeaways are. I mean, I'll say, learning to be content with our situations. And just, having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he's come. And you realize that materialism is not as important at the end of the day. Relationships are, people are, you want to hug your kids a little tighter,
Yeah.
that's what you take. That's what you take home. We can be so much better. We can, for what Allah has blessed us with.
Definitely. All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good. I'm sorry about the sniffles. I don't usually get sick, but it's been a rough weekend, so I'm starting to have a little cold going.
Yeah, everybody is sick these days. I don't know. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time and everything that I know that you've been busy and your work and everything, and I've been pestering you, but we really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing this, and I hope it helps you guys, and we'll catch up soon, inshallah.
This will definitely help. All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry.